Hello students, now I am going to explain to you the skill of illustration. Now this particular skill has 5 components: relevant examples, clear concept or content taught, simple and easy, student interaction, and correlates with the topic. Now I have chosen the poem Fable by Ralph Waldo Emerson from class 10 to demonstrate this particular skill. Now let me start with the first component, relevant examples. Now the teacher asks the students, name the 2 characters in the poem Fable. A student replies, the mountain and the squirrel. The teacher says, very good. Now the teacher shows this particular picture of the mountain and the squirrel and says that in this particular poem, the mountain and the squirrel have both been personified. The teacher explains that personification means the attribution of human nature and character to animals, inanimate objects, or abstract ideas. The teacher writes the word personification on the board. Now the teacher gives the example of the Jungle Book, wherein all the characters have been personified. Another example is given also by the teacher. The teacher says that the ocean danced to the moon in the moonlight. This particular expression has a personification. The ocean danced in the moonlight. So the ocean has been personified here. Again in the poem The daffodils fluttering and dancing in the breeze. There the daffodils have been personified. So this is how the teacher explains the concept of personification. Now we move on to the next component, clear concept, content taught. Now the teacher writes the expression little prig on the board and asks the students, why does the mountain call the squirrel little prig? Now, a student replies, because the squirrel is very small compared to the mountain. The teacher says, true, but the mountain is actually mocking at the squirrel for his small size. Why does he call the squirrel a prig? A student replies, a prig is a self-righteous person, one who puts on an appearance of being morally correct. So the mountain implies that the squirrel is trying to project himself as someone who is saying whatever he is saying is correct. Very good, the teacher says. The mountain mocks at the squirrel for thinking that his ideas are right. Remember in the story, the teacher shows this picture. Remember in the story, the lion and the mouse. The lion had mocked upon the little mouse when it said that if the lion would spare his life, then the mouse would save him or be of some service to the lion in future. To which the lion had laughed. But later on, it was proved that the little mouse actually saved the life of that mighty lion. So, this fable also depicts a very important truth that irrespective of size, an individual can have or have equal importance, and it is in the universe both small and big things exist, and all of them are important. Each one has its own importance. Now we move on to the next component, simple and easy. Now the teacher writes the term squirrel track on the board. Now, the teacher explains that a squirrel track is basically the footprints of the squirrel which are left on the mountains. The teacher shows the pictures of other animal tracks. This is what a squirrel track looks like. And these are the tracks of other animals such as the tiger, the elephant, the snake, the turtle and the beetle. So the teacher says that this squirrel track means the foot impression of the squirrel that it leaves on the mountain while moving. Now we come to the next component, student interaction. Now here the teacher recites these lines from the poem, but all sorts of things and weather must be taken in together to make up a year and a sphere. Now, the teacher says, the squirrel says that all the things created by God and nature are required to make up the universe as well as the seasons to form or to make up a year. A student asks, Madam, what does a sphere imply over here? The teacher draws a sphere on the board here and explains that a sphere represents the cyclical movement of life and it has a very deep philosophical meaning. The teacher says that all planets in the universe, they move in circular paths. So this circle has a very large implication. The teacher shows pictures of several events which take place in cyclical order. For example, the universe is represented often as a spherical shaped thing and entity, and the life and death also occurs in a kind of circle. The solar system has its orbits in a circular design. The circle of life, this also has a circular design. Seasons come in a circular form, that is, and day and night also comes in circular forms. That is where there is no end to it. It goes on and on. So this particular shape or this particular term, sphere, over here has a very deep and a very broad meaning. And the teacher explains that it is very significant because everything, every entity, whether small or big, in the universe, in nature, has its equal importance in completing this sphere, because we come back to the same point from where we start. So the teacher shows these pictures to illustrate this particular significance of the concept of sphere. The teacher asks the students, have you understood now? The student says, yes, madam. The teacher says, very good. Now we come to the final component, correlates with the topic. Here the teacher asks, what is the chief message of the poem? A student replies, the chief message of the poem is that all creatures, whether big or small, are equally important in nature. The teacher says, correct. Now the teacher explains that Ralph Waldo Emerson had written about a concept of oversoul because he was a transcendental writer, American poet. So he wrote about this particular concept of oversoul. The teacher writes the word oversoul on the board. Yes, this oversoul, and explains that in his essay, Oversoul, what Ralph Waldo Emerson tried to say is that every individual is eternally connected with every other living thing in the universe. With the oversoul, we are all connected to nature and each other. Or it contains and unites all souls and acts as an animating force behind them. Now, this concept is very much in keeping with the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta. In fact, according to Emerson's journal records in 1845, it was seen that he was reading the Bhagavad Gita and Colebrooke's essays on the Vedas. His oversoul concept is very close to the Vedic concept of Paramatman or the Supreme Soul. The teacher writes the term Paramatman on the board. So, the poet says, in very simple words, the poet says that all is well and wisely put. That is, the poet is trying to depict that everything in the universe, every creature, whether small or big, has its own role to play, and this particular, this enormous, this gigantic phenomenon is carried on by by this particular power, by the power of this particular Paramatman or the oversoul. So everything is predetermined, everything is very wisely set to its own point. That is the reason why in the poem, if we see the poem, that is the reason why the squirrel says that I don't feel it's a disgrace on my part to be small, to occupy my place, because my place in the universe is equally as important as yours. You don't have the spirit to move about, to scamper around like I do, but you have your own goodness. You can carry forests on your back, but you can't do a simple thing like cracking a nut. So everything, every individual, every creature, every phenomenon has its own importance and own significance. Nothing is less significant than the other. So it is necessary for us to realize that we must respect everything as a part of the creation of this oversoul or the Paramatman. I hope you have understood the concept. It is a very profound concept which is explained through a very simple poem depicted in an apparently fable-like structure or fable-like spirit, but the basic implication of it is extremely profound. So we come to the end of the skill of illustration. Thank you.